This man is done.
Donald Trump and a lot of his people have been focusing on things like footwear. I'll tell you this. If Donald Trump can summon the balls to show up to the debate, I'll wear a boot on my head. This is a time for...
Are you wearing higher heels than Ron DeSantis next week at the debate so you can look taller than him on the stage?
I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. I can tell you, I've always talked about my high heels. I've never, hid that from anybody. I've always said don't wear them if you can't run in them. So we'll see if he can run in them.
Normally, I don't proclaim something as being over with at a very early age, but when you make a statement like, I would be willing to debate with a boot on my head, and then you turn right back around and have the person who right now is tied with you, not only in South Carolina, but Iowa both, a person that is absolutely despised by the GOP base. Yeah, it's pretty much over with, especially given the fact that now she is clowning you on the same network that you went to the other day. So I don't really do that many 2024 primary videos, but I have done some videos before on this topic. Most of these were aimed at DeSantis because my personal belief is that the establishment was going to use him as a bit of a Trojan horse. I did do a few videos on this, and I'll go back and rehash some of what I spoke about in that video there. It won't be as detailed, but I will be leaving those videos in the description box for you. This video right here is designed more to talk about the actual autopsy of what I'm seeing right now, because this campaign right here, if you ask me, is pretty much dead. How in the world you start out by, having pretty high numbers, but still in second place, but still you had a chance to get the nomination, and then out in the middle of nowhere, you just completely fall apart throughout the entire process. And what you're about to see here in a minute on MSNBC, or MSDNC, as many people call it, is just an amalgamation of exactly how bad this campaign has been run and why it is that not only is this campaign over with, but any potential campaigns for this man are probably gone in the future. And of course, you're talking about a guy who looks a lot like Homelander. Yes, I'm putting this up right now. And of course, I'm putting up some polling data for you guys to show you that this man has never been close, or at least he has not been since February of 2023. And we're right at the end of the year. And as you guys can probably guess, yeah, this campaign is, of course, over, but let's go ahead and get you guys caught up to speed. So we recently had Bootgate, and I did do a video on that, and I talked a little bit about how annoying the campaign was and how it was that DeSantis suffers from this issue of not having any actual honest-to-God charisma. Now, guys, I'm going to play for you guys a compilation of DeSantis, and we're going to go through this before we get to the MSDNC stuff, because I'm pretty sure if you're somebody who's on the Trump side of the GOP base, you're probably going to be turned off immediately by listening to a good portion of this. I can kind of explain a lot of it, but we need to go back in time so that way you guys can see this. Let's go ahead and roll this, and then we'll get into the actual details. Make sure you guys watch it all the way through.
I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that.
If the election becomes a referendum on what document was left by the toilet at Mar-a-Lago, we are not going to win.
Of course he lost.
Trump lost the 2020 election.
Of course.
Okay.
Joe Biden's the president.
Remember, October of 2020, that first debate was Biden. Biden beat him in that debate. And that was really incredible that he allowed that to happen. But people remember that. I think that had a real significant impact in the election.
Will not do it. Saudi will not do it. None of them will do it.
Displaced from their homes in 1948. I was there. I saw where
None of them will do it. None of the Arab countries will be able to accept refugees.
You had my vote, but you don't now.
I'm sure your marketing team points out how they're trying to troll you in the marketplace. Okay, I'm sure they're doing that. Can you bring this one clip? I know you were on, what do you call it? On, what was it? Bill Maher, and Bill Maher talked about the boots. I've seen you walk with these boots. Go ahead and play this clip. This on TikTok went viral. It doesn't have 1 million views. It doesn't have, 10 million views. This thing's got 1.2 million likes. And some people are wondering,
what are they? I haven't seen that.
They've not shown this to you. Okay,
no.
What they're trying to say with this is that in your boots, you have heels.
No.
That's what they're trying to say.
Those are just standard off the rack Lucchese.
How tall are you? How tall are you, Governor? How tall?
5'11".
5'11". Okay. Why don't you wear tennis shoes and dress shoes?
I do wear tennis shoes when I work out. Yeah, 100%.
You do?
Yep.
Okay. I got a gift for you. I'd love for you to wear, okay, I shop at Ferragamo, okay, and
I don't accept gifts. I can't accept it.
I totally get it.
I'm sorry.
Bootgate, I already did a video on, and basically what I assessed was that DeSantis, what he should do is just kind of lean into it, learn to have a little bit of a personality here, actually develop some a sense of humor for it, kind of make fun of it, maybe if, I don't know, maybe if possible, just play with it, just kind of own it. I brought up the George W. Bush issue back in 2000 when Al Gore chose to stand up and try to intimidate Bush during a town hall debate. Of course, Bush just simply nodded, and it ended up being an epic fail for Man Bear Pig. Then I talked a good amount about how it was that DeSantis doesn't have any charisma, and then you see this little bit where a guy says, "You just lost me as a voter." That's not good. Okay, I understand that maybe the issue is that maybe DeSantis is more correct there. And like I said, a lot of these guys I agree with mostly on what the issues are. If that right there being the people who represent my side of the aisle. But here's the thing. When you have somebody say you had my vote, but then you lost it. By the way, the vast majority of those people who say you had my vote, but you just lost it, they're just going back to Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, I'll even make a bit of a prediction about Nikki Haley here soon because look, Nikki Haley is probably the most despised snake in the GOP, and now she has tied you. Okay, she's now tied you. DeSantis should at least be able to take her out. But of course, that's not happening. The thing that people need to understand about this particular campaign is that many people wanted DeSantis to run in 2028. He was their actual ace in the hole to take the MAGA movement and go to the next level. Even if Trump was to lose, then he would still be very viable, that being DeSantis in 2028. But we'll talk more about that here in a second because I have to go back in time and give you guys a bit of what I was actually thinking at worst would actually happen in 2024 in this video. But we'll get to that here in a second. The thing is this right here, and of course you see the stuff right there in that compilation, okay? One of those was while he was during 2020, during the whole COVID ordeal, and of course he was waiting on money from the CARES Act, and of course not only was he waiting for money on the CARES Act, he was looking to implement it. The fact of the matter is this right here. Ron DeSantis' presidential, or his career as a whole, he owes most of it to Donald Trump. I can already hear DeSantis people say, well, he won his re-election by a massive vote. Guys, he faced Charlie Crist. Charlie Crist was the governor of Florida. He was a Republican who then became an independent, then became a Democrat. He was a pretty weak politician. All right? That's how DeSantis won that race by a massive amount of people. And then to go on top of that, a lot of people from New York and California who were leaving Newsom and leaving Cuomo and then eventually Hochul, they moved down to Florida too. So they already were getting a lot more Republican votes. This is one of the things I keep telling people, that if you think that people are bringing their politics with them from state to state, I need you to understand, those who are most fed up with the situation are typically the ones that are first to leave. So it's typically the conservative-minded voters who leave first. Then what happens is that those from the big city come afterwards. If you want more proof of this, just look at the U.S. Census. That's how you figure this entire thing out. That's how you figure out who's coming to your state and what kind of politics they're bringing. Chances are, if they're coming from upstate New York to, say, my home state of North Carolina, they're probably going to be voting Republican, or they're probably going to do win and run. However, if they're coming from the city itself, more than likely central or upper Manhattan, guess what? They're probably going to be voting Democrat when they get here, and they normally move to other big cities like, say, Raleigh, or possibly a city like Greensboro or Charlotte. Or maybe the case of the city that I live in, which, by the way, I'm not going to tell you which one it is. But still, at the same time, I'm pretty sure you guys know where I'm going with this. His victory, for the most part, was patented, whereas in 2018, he was down by 11 points. He got the Trump endorsement, and, of course, he eventually surged, and he had these cringeworthy ads and stuff like that. And, of course, to go on top of this, he really and truly does owe a lot of his political career to Donald Trump. Am I saying that Ron DeSantis is a bad governor? No. But then again, though, when I see that this recent gun legislation he signed to say it was open carry has problems in it and still has red flag laws, that right there makes me wonder if he's a little bit overrated. Also, something else, too, and I've given him hell over this right here before, but the Parental Rights Act, the quote-unquote Don't Say Gay bill, which the left labeled as that, it only covered to the 3rd grade. It wasn't until after his reelection that he chose to make it to the 8th grade. The guy, quite frankly, is completely overrated, and he's getting calls from his own state legislative to come back home and actually do his job as governor of Florida. Then we get to these
money attacking me in Iowa. He's had to go campaign in Iowa. So if he's saying he's so far up he doesn't need to debate, that is belied by their activity on the ground there.
Do you think any candidate that's afraid to debate his opponents in a primary should be president of the United States?
We are not going to win as Republicans, Joe, by adopting the strategy that Biden did, being in the basement during the 2020 campaign. That's effectively what Donald Trump's doing. He is refusing to debate. We've got a lot of issues that this country is facing right now. It requires steady, focused, strong leadership. You got to be able to defend your record, and you got to be able to articulate how you're going to take the country in a better direction. And so my view about why you should debate, I mean, look, I want to fight for people. You know, and Donald Trump is perceived by Republicans as a fighter, but I also want to win for people. That means winning elections, but also means winning on these policy fights. Donald Trump even now is saying that his famous promise to build the wall and have Mexico pay for it, that he never intended to do it because he said that Mexico, there was no mechanism to do it. You actually could have taxed the remittances, and that's what I would do. But we need a lead to lead forward. You got to have a unifying vision. So he should do it. But I would note this. I mean, you mentioned some of ever since I ran, there's always the narratives. Trump is spending massive amounts of money attacking me in Iowa.
And you raised your hand. You're a lawyer. You've served in the Navy. You were well trained at the greatest schools. Do you really believe that a man who's convicted of, say, attempting to overturn the 2020 election or taking nuclear secrets back to his beach club, do you actually still, as we sit here today, believe that person should be president?
So I signed a pledge, Willie, and that pledge is what it is. Now, do I think somebody under those circumstances could get elected president? The answer is no. That will not happen. I think that Republican voters will understand that as we get closer to voting. But it would be fatal in a general election. And I don't think the party should nominate in that situation. However, I signed the pledge. I'm a Republican. I don't think it's going to come to that, and I think we'll get the job done like we need to. But the reality is I signed it, and that's what I did.
So you stand by that this morning?
Yeah, when I signed the pledge, I knew you never know what's going to happen. It's a crazy process. People make different decisions, and I think my point of view on it was, I'm participating in this process. I've got the plan to win. We're going to win. At the same time, it's like you can't just take your ball and go home. You can't, on the one side of your mouth, say the country's in decline, Biden's failing, and on the other hand, say, I'm just going to pout if things don't go my way. So that was kind of.
Now, I will give DeSantis the thing on the wall. I will give him that there. I think a lot more walls should have been built. By the way, a lot of people will automatically assume that Trump voters don't know how to criticize Trump. Let me just go ahead and say this. I did not agree with Trump's dabbling into red flag laws. I did not like his bump stock ban, of course, even though I knew that would get struck down by a lower court. I also think that Trump did a very bad job of bringing in the establishment. He should never have done this, but obviously he would have needed some establishment figures to help get some of his nominees in place. So he's a deal maker by trade, so therefore you're going to get that. And I know I'm going to get some criticism in the comment section of people saying, you just don't want to criticize Trump. No. I've criticized the man exact same way I'm criticizing DeSantis too. Just happens to be that DeSantis is a lot worse when you actually look at who the hell is actually backing him. But still. The Dilly meme team on Twitter has done a phenomenal job of exposing these people and trolling the little hell out of them. Here's the truth about the situation involving DeSantis. DeSantis's people thought that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, who, by the way, Elon did in fact endorse DeSantis for president, they thought that Elon Musk was going to keep MAGA accounts like DC Drano and I guess Dilly and a lot of other accounts. I guess they thought that he was going to be keeping them off Twitter. And the DeSantis team thought that they could just simply run with messaging. And, of course, that's not the case. Elon pretty much allowed everybody back on for the exception of Alex Jones, which Alex Jones has even said that he was cool with. So I don't want to hear people complain about Elon Musk saying, look, well, why don't you bring back Alex Jones? And my response to that is Alex Jones has publicly said that he's okay with being off Twitter. He understands why Elon can't do it. So please do us a favor. Just kind of understand that that's the reason why Alex Jones is not there. The thing is this right here. they were under the impression, the DeSantis people were under the impression that MAGA accounts were not going to come back. And of course, when MAGA accounts were brought back on, these people didn't know how to combat it. That's one of the reasons why they're losing so bad. And they've completely, totally unraveled as a result of this. But then again, though, seeing how incompetent that team of individuals is, it's not a surprise to me that DeSantis is doing as bad as he's doing. As a matter of fact, they've led his career, they've led his campaign to absolute ruin and his career to ruin, which makes me want to address this next part. Is DeSantis simply staying in the race to hopefully be crowned the GOP nominee at the convention or something if Trump is actually like convicted or anything? Even if he's convicted, you're still not getting him off the ballot. And of course, just because the man's been convicted doesn't mean he still can't be president. There's no provision of that anyways. I can already hear people in the comments, there's a provision, you can't. No. Dude, you could arrest him, keep him inside of a Mar-a-Lago or put him on house arrest in Trump Tower, and he could still win the presidency, get into office, and pardon himself if he actually wants to. That's actually the legal theory that we're getting. Either way, to go on top of this, the moves that they're making to get him removed are just simply not going to work because more than likely they're going to be overturned by SCOTUS. But we'll mention that again here in a second. The thing is this right here. The DeSantis team did not expect to get absolutely buzzsawed by groups like, say, the Dilly Mean team, counts like DC Drano, Laura Loomer, people like that. They've absolutely demolished the DeSantis online team. They did not expect this, so now they're getting more and more desperate. And of course, the desperation signals that you're right there. I mean, this campaign is so incompetent. I don't know where to. Oh yeah, I do know where to start. The Never Back Down Pact. You guys seeing this? I'm showing you guys the Never Back Down Pact. They've got less subscribers than this channel here. I'm a small YouTuber. And this thing, a presidential candidate, has got less subscribers than I do. Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy was very smart to start off by creating an actual online campaign. It helps fuel him. It keeps money in his pocket while he's traveling on the road. The DeSantis team didn't really do this. They relied heavily on big-time donors, and that's something else, too, that a lot of people are saying, that Trump actually gets mostly small donors and a lot of them because it looks more grassroots, where DeSantis is just being backed by those who've got all the money, and therefore it makes him automatically look completely out of touch. But don't mention that to the DeSantis people, or else they will just flip out like a radical left. Now, guys, you saw a compilation earlier where he said that Biden actually won that debate. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now that that first debate, I personally felt that Chris Wallace won that first debate. If you remember that first debate between Trump and Biden, then you will more than likely remember that Trump, for whatever reason, was interrupting Biden constantly, which made him look weak. I took it as a sign of him basically trying to make Joe Biden look weak, but Chris Wallace kept stepping in, kept butting in, and next thing you know, you have a debate where Trump is just debating Chris Wallace and Joe Biden both. He was getting 2-on-1. The second debate, Trump did a much, much better job. Of course, the original plan for the second debate included a certain particular moderator who had donated or had worked for Joe Biden in the past was going to be the actual moderator. So Trump did not go to it. Of course, he also had COVID too. So that debate did not happen. And of course, Trump even looked a little bit weak in that process. But people forget, he had COVID at the time, and I understand that he could debate on Skype, or he could do it through via connection cord, whatever you want to do, through camera phones, whatever. I mean, however you want to do it, through live stream. It still probably would not have worked out very well for him due to the moderator, which, by the way, I understand why he didn't trust that. But still, when you say stuff like that there, it's almost like you're helping the Biden campaign. It's like you're actually helping the Bidens out in their reelection effort. Some of the things that he's actually gone after Trump for, and the thing that really bothers me is obviously what you saw at the very, very end, where he chose to not want to raise his hand at the speed of everyone else did. Nikki Haley is one of the biggest swamps in the GOP. One of the biggest snakes in the GOP. She raised her hand. DeSantis took, and I'm playing it over and over and over for you, DeSantis took an additional 5 or 6 seconds to see what everybody else was doing on that debate stage at that time to even raise his hand. And of course, when he says, well, I took a pledge, and not only did I take a pledge, it may make you think that maybe at the end of the day that he would not take the pledge. At the end of the day, it might be another betrayal. It might be another one of those 2012 Christie moment. I almost called him Krispy Kreme, which is really what his real name is. Yeah, it makes you think about Hurricane Sandy. It makes you think that another betrayal is coming. But I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about that, and I'll talk about this here in a second. But here is something else too that you have to consider about the DeSantis team or the DeSantis campaign and how they've been running. Their online base of support has gone out of their way to alienate any and every voter who would actually vote for him. Some people have even theorized that these are secretly Trump people who have decided to sabotage his campaign for the sole purpose of making Trump the nominee. Trump right now, and I can hear somebody say, well, Trump doesn't want to debate, and quite frankly, I don't blame him. Look at the polling numbers. The minute Donald Trump steps on that debate stage against this cast of characters, what they're going to do, they're going to all swing in there, and they're all going to attack the living hell out of him is what they're going to do. He's going to be fighting 6, 7 on 1. The only person who might not attack him is maybe Tim Scott, the only three, and Doug Burgum. Everybody else has kind of signaled that they don't want to be the nominee, and they've gone out of their way to obviously shame him more and more and more. What DeSantis should have done was what Vivek Ramaswamy did. He should have actually went in and actually given the MAGA base, he should have given them sweet things. He should have actually gone out of his way. Not realizing that these people also helped get him elected, he should have actually been nice to that base. But his online team has been absolutely horrible. Then you had the listless vessels comment. And of course, you had the fact that he's simply running for president when we want him to run in 2028. The fact of the matter is this right here, and Ron DeSantis obviously did not get this, and his team did not get this. You attract bees with honey, not with vinegar. Then that leaves us with the Haley question. So what's going to happen now? Well, DeSantis is now polling third in some polls in Iowa, which is exactly where he's put all of his effort, all of his campaign efforts in. If I wanted to do a full 2-hour-long where this guy's campaign which went wrong, which I may do once he officially drops out or once he officially becomes completely non-viable in the media anymore, the thing is this right here. He's looking at possibly being number 5. Meaning he's going to end up being 5th. Tim Scott's on his last legs. I suspect, however, that he will get a bit of a bump up though soon, especially given the fact that the very next debate, they're probably all going to be going after DeSantis. The only person who won't be affected as far as going up or down in the discussion will probably be Ramaswamy, who I honestly think is just running for name recognition, which is exactly what I thought DeSantis would initially do going into 2024. But the more and more I realize it, the more and more I see people like Bill Maher say, I really like DeSantis, the more and more I saw people in the liberal media say he's more dangerous than Trump, it automatically hit me. The liberal media was picking the GOP nominee. This has only worked once in history. Only one time has this actually worked in history where the liberal media picked the GOP nominee. Now, I'm not going to go through every single example, but I am going to go back to 2000. In the year 2000, the liberal media wanted John McCain to be the Republican nominee. John McCain was always a very weak Republican. He always was. He fashioned himself to be a maverick, but he sided with liberals on every single issue. He never sided with his own caucus, never sided with his own party. He always found a way to blow up legislation. All you got to do is go back and look at Obamacare. And, of course, when it came back up in 2017 when Trump was in office, John McCain was never really and truly an actual conservative. 2008, John McCain was officially selected by the liberal media. Remember, in 2000, George W. Bush became the nominee. And as controversial as it may be, I have to remind people all the time that while people keep on saying that that election was rigged, I need you to know right now that George W. Bush never trailed in any one of the recounts that happened in the state of Florida. It's just the way that it is. So then you get to 2008. And of course, most people will say that Barack Hussein Obama was going to win that election in a massive landslide. And he probably would have. However, I would say this right here. If Republicans had went with Giuliani or if they had gone with maybe Mike Huckabee, they would have at least kept Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, and possibly Ohio. Obama still would have won, but it would have more than likely been a much, much closer victory. In 2012, the liberal media selected Mitt Romney. We all saw what happened then. The only time that I could think of outside of, where the liberal media actually selected a Republican nominee was 2016, and it backfired. It backfired because Donald Trump knew how to spin the narratives and he knew how to make the media look weak. If anything, the media is really the ones who lost the election for the Democrats in 2016. But I'm pretty sure you guys kind of pick up on what I'm saying. Now the liberal media does not want to face Donald Trump, even though he brings them a lot of ratings. That should be a pretty solid sign, a pretty solid indication that they would much rather face DeSantis because of his awkwardness and his inability to connect with certain audiences and connect with his own base. Not to mention the fact you would need that MAGA base of support to get you over to even win, especially given all the fortifications. And of course, we keep hearing people say stuff like, well, DeSantis will get the full base. DeSantis will be able to get over. DeSantis will be able to win. The polling data that's been coming out recently consistently, especially in the RCP aggregate, shows that DeSantis is the one candidate on the GOP side that loses in just about every single situation. He used to win, now he's losing. Why in the world is he losing? Because GOP voters in the GOP base has been turned off by his recent activities and his overall awkwardness. So yes, he's looking at a 5th place finish. However, this right here is a guy that we're going to be bringing up again on the weekend, but you got to give Mark Dice one. You've got to give him his credit. You got to give the devil his due.
And after I posted this uncomfortable fact on Twitter, they proudly got me community noted, which is the supposed fact-checking system that adds context to tweets, just like YouTube does when you talk about certain subjects that they want to control the conversation about. And so they did get this bogus context or community note added when I simply said, if Trump loses in 2024, of course, DeSantis people will blame Trump supporters when they themselves fractured the party and aided Democrats by attacking Trump instead of uniting behind him. Typical leftist tactic. Blame others for what they themselves are guilty of. Trump started attacking DeSantis days before the 2022 midterms and spent almost $20 million on attack ads before he even announced. If that is true, it was obviously to try to dissuade Ron DeSantis from even getting into the race, because obviously it has fractured the party. And now all of the never-Trumpers are getting the band back together, but this time many of them are painting themselves into a corner that they're not going to be able to psychologically get out of. And if Donald Trump is the nominee, which all indications are pointing to that, then many of them may actually stay never-Trumpers, like Ben Shapiro back in 2016, after Trump was the nominee, still dissuaded his...
Now let's talk about the never-Trumpers for a second. I want to go ahead and make this abundantly clear. Here's the thing. Typically in GOP primaries, it's always divisive, okay? Typically a candidate will be at like 40% in the polls. Trump, of course, is getting like 60 in the national polls. It's probably going to end up being 70 at sometime in February. And of course, people think that, well, he's going to be convicted. Okay, he may be convicted, which I think they will get a conviction on him in one of these cases. But the problem is this right here. All their attempts to try and remove him via the 14th Amendment will just end up getting turned by SCOTUS because that particular amendment goes towards members of Congress. The next thing you have to look at is the fact that even if you do arrest him, you can't hold him because he's got the Secret Service. You're going to lock them up too. That's another problem. And when DeSantis brings up the whole fact that he's going to be unelectable, I disagree with that 100%. If anything, that's going to motivate more people to go out and go vote for him because let's be honest, everybody loves an outlaw. But there's also something else, too, that does, in fact, need to be stated on this issue when it comes to the never-Trumpers. The never-Trumpers like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and them, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Some of those original 2016 never-Trumpers will still vote for Donald Trump in 2024 because they realize the stakes are too high. We'll get to that here in a second. But a good portion of the DeSantis crowd that he is talking about, the online crowd, they may go support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Chances are they weren't going to support Trump regardless. They probably didn't support him in 2020. The thing about the never Trump base, and I need you guys to understand this, and we'll get to the whole numbers thing in a second. Ben Shapiro lives, if just in case he decides to say, I'm not going to vote this election, Ben Shapiro lives in Tennessee. He's a multimillionaire. So his vote, regardless of who he votes for or whether he does not vote, is more than likely not going to count in that state, so therefore it's not going to matter. Also, to go on top of this, Matt Walsh lives in the exact same area. He's a millionaire too. His vote's not going to matter, or him not showing up to vote is not going to matter anyways. See, the thing is this right here. These people do have influence, but I don't think they have the influence that you think that they have. There may be a situation where they tell their audience, well, I'm not going to vote and you shouldn't vote either. They're going to say, screw this crap right here. I can't afford the BS that's going on here. I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of you who are watching this channel here probably have an income, or I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to convey over to you guys that more than likely you're just a lot like me. You're working class. You just so happen to be, I just got time for this on camera, but you're working class. You probably come from backgrounds similar to me. You probably have some of the same values that I did. I'm just guessing if the reason why you watch this content is because you have a lot of the same values and you're in a lot of the same position that I'm in. It's just a guess. I mean, if not, please say so in the description box. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The thing is this right here. You are in a position where you cannot afford to stay home, whereas someone like Shapiro or Walsh or the Never-Trumpers or Steve Deese in particular, they, on the other hand, can afford to stay home because they're going to be okay regardless. You guys at home, however, the vote actually matters. And if you're someone like me who lives in a state where the governorship is on the line, I got no choice but to get out and actually vote. But let's go through this a little bit more.
Shapiro back in 2016, after Trump was the nominee, still dissuaded his audience from voting for Donald Trump. And so then, like I said, I am concerned that these Ron DeSantis supporters may ultimately cost us the election in the end. Donald Trump won in 2016 by only 80,000 votes. Now, he didn't get the popular vote because we have an electoral college system in the United States, which is the best system because that way California and New York don't decide the nation's elections. So every state has an equal weight. And so the way that the math figured out was 80,000 people in those key swing states ended up pushing him over the edge. And if Ben Shapiro wouldn't have been an ever-Trumper and tried to dissuade many of his viewers and listeners from voting for Donald Trump, that probably would have been bumped up by at least another 20, 30, maybe even 50,000 votes. And many of the DeSantis voters are saying that because Donald Trump supposedly lost in 2020, they're not going to vote for him in 2024 against Joe Biden because he'll probably lose a second time. Well, times have changed, and Joe Biden is aging like milk, and the country and the world is falling apart. And so many Biden voters, many centrists, many independents who voted for Joe Biden or just sat the election out because they didn't like Trump, they didn't like Biden, they're certainly not going to want a second term of what we're experiencing.
As you guys can see, obviously every vote counts, okay? We know about 2020, but I've told people constantly stop blackpilling the base in 2020. Trump, by the way, is also somewhat responsible for it himself, but he keeps telling people to go out and actually vote. He keeps telling people to actually go out and go do that. Now, as far as addressing this whole issue of the never-Trumpers like I did before, just know that the vast majority of the never-Trumpers out there, their vote's not going to affect them regardless. However, their non-vote may affect you, so therefore you need to go out there and still support the GOP nominee if you want to put an end to this stuff to begin with, or support whoever. But there is one more thing that does in fact need to be said, and that's the situation that the world is in. You've got rampant inflation. You've got extremely high gas prices. You got a lot of Biden voter regret. And a lot of people who regret voting for Joe Biden more than likely go support RFK or Cornel West to stick it to Biden because they don't want to vote for Trump. The thing is this right here, they're actually splitting the vote. So if anything, your vote may count a lot more if you actually go out there and go vote. And by the way, as I just said before, Biden's not going to get the same amount of support that he got in 2020. And if he magically did, in case COVID was to come back, he would not get the same support again because more than likely people would have seen that he bungled it as well. So the fact of the matter is that in this situation, your vote will in fact count. So get out there and go support the nominee. Get out there and go support the former President Trump because he's really and truly the only person who's going to be able to turn this entire thing around. DeSantis, it's like a wet fart, dude. He's not going to motivate anybody to vote for him. And he's pissed off the MAGA base, which brings me to my final point. I don't typically make predictions on this channel as far as what's going to happen this year. I've only done that like once or twice, and I was only about halfway right in each case. But I have gotten some correct. Like, for example, the Truth Commission thing with Nita Jankowicz, where I said that eventually it would fall apart. And, of course, it did. Here's the thing. My initial thinking was if Trump was the nominee, what would happen is that Republicans would add to the House majority, or they would take back the House. It was back in 2022. And that they would simply take back the Senate, probably 6 seats, because there are a lot of seats. For example, Ohio, that's a Democrat seat right now, but a very, very red state, or becoming a red state. Sherrod Brown's not going to win. I didn't think, Kristen Sinema would probably lose if she faced the right candidate. Same thing in Nevada with the rightward shift. Same thing in Montana with John Tester. There's a rightward shift going on there. Same thing possibly in the state of Wisconsin, where there's a rightward shift. Tammy Baldwin's not the most popular senator in the world. And my thinking was, at the worst, Republicans would just get back the Senate and add to the House, which would be enough in case the president did lose, but they would have gotten like a lot of state and local races to where, and even some governorships, that it would be able to hold the Biden administration in place until we could actually get someone else to run things in 2028. It basically make him a lame duck is what it would do. However, that being said, now looking at the situation, especially with third-party candidates, it's very possible that Trump could very, very much landslide the literal hell out of this current administration. And I advise you guys out there to go out there and help him landslide this current administration, because if you can landslide them, you can avoid what happened in 2020. With that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and halt this video now. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.